Hi, we're Team 16. I'm Brian Van Ness.
I'm Corey Campbell.
Ashika Mystery. Jessica Hernandez.
And we're going to be discussing the TriCity case. We're going to be looking at the existing problems, symptoms, alternatives. We'll look at the pros and cons. We'll also look at some of the recommendations and then a feasible timeline on how we would implement it. And I'm going to turn this over now to Ashika.
All right, so for the existing problems out of the case, we picked out 4 major problems that we found, and the first one is the ordering process, which is a long-term problem. The second one is implementation of the new computer system, which is integrated procurement and purchasing and supply department, and that's a long-term issue as well. Then we have the wiper blade stockout problem and safety, which is a short-term problem, and customer service issues, which is short-term as well. I'm going to pass it over to Jessica to explain the symptoms.
So symptoms we have for the first issue, which is the ordering process, would be limited ordering capabilities to customers placing the orders. For the second issue, which is implementation of the new system, would be ordering was more difficult with the new system. Some people were having issues because they've been in the company for 10, 15 years, so they were pretty used to the old system, so learning a new system was a bit of an issue. The third symptom was roadblocks in the ordering process of wiper blades. The ordering system sometimes included up to 7 windows, which made it a more tedious and long process to order. The fourth symptom is not ordering wiper blades on time, causing out of stock issues for our customers. We should always have at least some type of pieces to not cause problems with our customers. So now we'll go to the alternatives, and I'll pass it to Brian.
Hi. So we're going to look at some possible alternatives that we would use. Excuse me. One of them was, first alternative is to actually go back to the previous system. Now, by doing this, of course, this would be a long-term solution just because of the man hours and everything we would need to go back to a previous system. Excuse me. One of the pros for that, of course, would be all customers had online ordering capabilities, which worked very well for that system. The staff had an appropriate workload, so they weren't overstaffed. They weren't, having to put in a lot of excessive hours, which was really good. Now, some of the cons, of course, is the various standalone systems which we need to be integrated into one. So since we have so many different systems that are basically bolt-ons, by doing this, the amount of resources it's going to take to try to integrate this into one system where it would actually work well is going to be quite costly as well. Now, one of our other alternatives, of course, which is another long term, is stay with the new integrated procurement system. Now, that's a pretty good one too, only because of the pros of it. It's integrated, it stands alone system. It also encompasses purchasing, accounting, warehousing, and payroll, which allows superior management control. By having that integrated system, it makes the overall business work more cohesive. It also provides initial step to internet-enabled business. We see the future going in that direction, and that's one of the reasons we believe this is a very good, strong point of actually continuing with this system. It also allows for supplier performance appraisal on a continuous basis. This allows us the opportunity to look at our suppliers, determine what they're doing good, what they're doing bad, and actually being able to score them on it. So then we can actually look in the future, do we want to continue doing business with them, or do we want to look at other possible solutions? Now, some of the cons of this, of course, is more complex. There's a lot of input processes. It requires 7 screens of input. Some of the disadvantages of that, of course, is data's only as good as the input that goes into it. So if we have somebody keep punching something in wrong, it can actually skew our numbers, which could cause us some problems. Excuse me. We also have an increased workload of staff. And so by increasing the workload, of course, it costs us more money to run that process. There's no customization of the purchasing and supply department. So ordering process needs revision. So that would be something we would have to look at, maybe going in and seeing if there's something we could do to better fix our process in our supply chain. Now, the customers were unhappy with the new system, and this is a con. But one of the things we'll talk about this maybe a little later, is some of the things that we can do to get past that. And one of the things would be training, right? Because no one likes change. The other thing that we looked at is to create the wiper blade back order and alternative wiper blade ordering process. This is a short term. And so some of the pros would be, of course, there's not going to be any shortage to the wiper blades. The ordering process is more efficient, it's more cost effective. A good percentage of the customers are ensured that their order went through into the system. So once they place that order, they actually know that their product's on its way. Versus some of the older process is they weren't sure if it had been back ordered. So the system won't allow for them to input the order if we don't have it in stock. Now, some of the cons, of course, to that is extra inventory. So then we actually have less capital to work with. In case the wiper blades don't sell, then we're sitting with a bunch of excess inventory that we can't get rid of. One of our last ones we looked at was implementing the CRM system to resolve customer complaints. This is a short-term solution, and some of the pros in it: it's a robust CMR system, which will track customer complaints. It's integrated already into our system. We can also track fulfillment of orders, and we can actually look at our on-time deliveries of when we're actually supplying the product. We can also create reports to allow the senior management to look at, excuse me, to implement any type of corrective actions, right? So we can better supply our customers with their needs. Now, some of the cons, of course, is going to be initial cost. It's very high. Also, it's very costly on implementation that it goes through. And then you actually have your training, so we would have to train everybody on this new system. So I'm going to turn this over to Corey, and he's going to talk about our recommendations on what we felt as a team was the best way to go with this case. We're also going to look at, and he's going to explain as well, the timeline, right? And we're going to look at the timeline. And we've kind of got this board here that we put up as a visual aid for you. It doesn't have all the information on there, but this is the basic outline. And so some of the things during this phase that Corey's going to be talking about is some of the roadblocks. And then we're going to talk about the pros, how can we get rid of the roadblocks and what the solutions are for a good implementation schedule where we can better meet our needs for our customers.